Welcome one, welcome all to the dad show that bests them all. You like that, Kyle?
I do. That was good stuff.
Figured you would. This is Dad's Watching Sports. He is Kyle Castles. I am Michael Draper. It is Sunday, March the 7th. Oh my goodness. We are 1 week away from Selection Sunday. I'm
It's
excited.
basically, tell me if I'm wrong, but I've known you a while. I think I know this. This is, maybe it's not your favorite day. Maybe your favorite day is or your favorite days is Final Four weekend or something like that. But this has got to be up there, like ranking above Christmas for you, right?
I mean, the Thursday, Friday of the NCAA tournament should be a national holiday because it's two of the greatest days ever.
Because I watch it while I'm at work.
Well, yeah, I mean, some of us do, or some of us, have like in previous jobs. So my job, I guess it was 2 jobs ago. I was working in Texas at the YMCA, and my boss, Derek Smith, shout out. When I got the job, he knew I was a UK fan. We were kind of talking about it, and he was like, so, Thursday, Friday, NCAA tournament, he says, save your PTO because we go and rent out a room here at the local sports bar, a bunch of us, and we just go in there and watch games all day. And I was like, oh my gosh, like this is awesome. And so, yeah, we are, it's a national holiday around the Draper household. Looking forward to it. It all starts next Sunday with Selection Sunday. I can't wait. Cannot wait, but we'll get to that in a little bit. We are Dad's Watching Sports. It's episode 55. We're broadcasting live on our Facebook page, the Off the Ball Network Facebook page. And of course, you can download the show anytime, anywhere, any place where you find podcasts. If you do that, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. We would love for you to give us a review and a rating. If you love the show, that's great. If you hate the show, you're an idiot, and give us a 5-star rating anyway. Because we'd very much appreciate that. And then, of course, you can check out Dad's Watching Sports. We're on the book. We're on the gram. We're on Twitter. We're on everything, Kyle, in terms of social media. Maybe. I don't know. I don't know what the new latest fun stuff is.
It's all about the TikTok, man. It's all about the TikTok with the youngsters.
That's right. I don't do the TikTok. I was on it for a little bit and was like, man, what am I wasting hours upon hours upon hours of my life? And got rid of it. Welcome back, Kyle. We missed you last week. We had a great show last week. So you were out and pinch hitting for you were Ryan Watson and Jonathan Boren of Coach's Corner podcast, Broadway Sports Media, also 2 former coaching buddies of yourself.
Yep.
We missed you, but you checked out a portion of the show. What'd you think? What'd you think of the guys on?
The parts that I heard, I thought it was great. Those are 2 really good dudes. I hate that I missed that show. I think it's okay to say this out loud, but you might be able to catch Mike and I on their show Tuesday night this week.
Yep. Go to wherever you download podcasts and look for the Coach's Corner, and the dads are going to be making what we think is a special guest appearance to return the favor. Who knows what we're going to talk about? But it'll be fun.
Oh yeah,
it'll be enjoyed by all. A couple of comments coming in already. Mo Murphy with the GOAT. Yes, Mo. We know we're the GOAT, and you are too. We will hear from Mo later on in the program. Mo's got a lot of stuff because Kyle, this is our fan episode, and Mo is a diehard Ohio State Buckeye fan.
Well, hang on. Is he saying we're the GOAT, or is he calling himself the GOAT since he knows he's going to be on the show?
I think a little bit of both. I'm good with both. I'm good with
both.
Also, Chris LeBron says, fellas, I'm sure Chris is checking out All-Star Weekend, NBA All-Star Weekend going on right now, the All-Star game tipping off and getting things going there. Kyle, so I've already alluded to it. This is our fan episode. I'm really excited about this. We're going to get into it in just a few minutes, but man, we've got like a host of people talking about how they became a fan, who the team they are, what team are they a fan of? Some really kind of cool and interesting stories. People are kind of trashing their rivals. I'm really excited about it. And then later on in the show, we've already done the interview. I had a chance to sit down this afternoon with Eric Simmons. He literally wrote the book on being a sports fan and kind of the science behind it. The title of his book is The Secret Lives of Sports Fans, The Science of Sports Obsession. And it was a really great conversation about just talking about the highs and lows of fandom and why people kind of gravitate towards being a fan, and how you can see kind of mirroring, people being sports fans and people being political junkies and these things and how all the science behind it is a really, really cool conversation. And I look forward to sharing that with everybody here in just a little bit. But before we get into everything fan, a couple things I wanted to touch base with you on, Kyle, just because there's other things going on in the sports and dad world. So you and I, we you probably more so than me, but we dabble every once in a while in a little professional wrestling.
We do.
But specifically way back in the day, you a little bit more than me nowadays, but there's a hip new wrestling organization out there, or at least it's new to me, AEW, and they had a pretty unique and exciting appearance by the great Aristotle, Shaquille O'Neal. And I mean, my man went through not one, but 2 tables on AEW. Did you have a chance to check Shaq out in action?
Yeah. I mean, he took a bump. There you go.
That's a heck of a bump, man.
Look. I'll take that bump.
Yeah. And you won't get up for 5 days.
No. I'll get up. I'm in better shape than Shaq.
Please.
He took good for him. Good for AEW. Do you know who started the company?
Wasn't it? The Dusty Rhodes' kids, right?
Dusty Rhodes his son Cody, former WWE guy, right? Yeah. Went and started his own thing with the help of some other, big indie guys that I won't get into because nobody cares. But
he's also isn't his brother Goldust, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
His brother's Goldust, and he's on the roster. And
I was going to ask, is he still go? Man, that guy's been wrestling for
forever,
40 years.
Well, not 40 years. He's been wrestling since like the late 80s.
Okay, 30.
30
that's almost 40.
It is almost 40.
It's 2020, Kyle. We're almost 40.
Their major finance partner is the son of the Jacksonville Jaguars owner. Is it Tony Khan? Is that the Jaguars owner? So there's all sorts of sports connections here we can make.
Yeah.
But yeah, like Shaq's a TNT guy. AEW just plays on TNT. It kind of made sense.
Yeah.
Shaq should have been a pro wrestler anyways. You're that big, you got that much charisma, you make a lot of money wrestling.
Yeah, I think he did all right in the profession that he chose. Yeah. But anyways, okay, so it got me thinking, seeing Shaq go into those tables. We've seen celebrities or other athletes, if you will, make these appearances. I mean, it all kind of started with the original WrestleMania, and they had, all these celebrities were a part of it, and that kind of continues to this day. But in terms of celebrity wrestling appearances, and this could be in a match, this could be in any form or fashion that you choose, what are your top 5 celebrity wrestling appearances, Mr. Castles?
So I'll go 5 to 1. And at number 5, 1997. Mike Tyson shows up, I think right after Royal Rumble, maybe right before Royal Rumble, somewhere in there. And it culminates in him, he takes off the shirt and he's got a DX shirt one night, like, he's going to be on Shawn Michaels' side as Shawn Michaels goes and takes on Stone Cold Steve Austin in the main event on WrestleMania. And he's like I think he called him an enforcer or something, forgive me, right? And then he turns on Shawn at WrestleMania 14 and whatever. It's a huge ordeal. It's great. But Tyson involved in any kind of combat sport is worth watching, let's be honest.
Without a doubt. I've got it on my list too. I'll go ahead and tell you that was my number 2.
There you go. Number 4, late 90s, early 2000s WWF. Anytime Pete Rose showed up, especially in a chicken suit, and got tombstone by Kane, I was a fan.
Sure.
Not because I hate Pete Rose, just because I thought Pete Rose was hilarious.
Yeah.
So there's that.
Taking a bump.
Yeah. Bob Uecker, number 3. Bob Uecker getting choked by Andre at WrestleMania 4 is what I got.
Very iconic photo where he's got his hands around his neck and he's got.
So you think it's 2 hands? It's actually 1 hand around his neck. That's how big Andre's hands are.
Yeah, touche.
Number 2, I got Dennis Rodman, Hulk Hogan versus DDP and Karl Malone.
Okay.
And I forget which pay-per-view that was for WCW, but that was.
I think that was Hog Wild, and that is my number 3.
So I'm gonna throw this out. I'm pretty sure me and you watched that live.
I'm pretty sure we
because
probably
there
did.
were people at our church that bought the pay-per-views, and we go to their house to watch it.
Shout out Tony Milam,
Tony Milam.
my man.
And then number one, just because I fully believe this should be our national anthem, and I know people are going to give me crap for it, but I don't really care. Ray Charles singing "America the Beautiful" at WrestleMania 2, greatest celebrity appearance at any wrestling show.
That's a pretty good one. That did not make my list. Okay, so my number 5, I'm taking you back to WrestleMania 13, and you've got the greatest defensive presence of all time, LT Lawrence Taylor. And you think you've got the guy who is arguably the best.
That's WrestleMania 11. Come on.
Well, same thing.
13,
the guy who is arguably one of the best defensive, if not the best defensive player in NFL history, and he lines up against Bam Bam. Like, come on, they could have done a little bit better of a booking job there. But I do have it as number 5 because, I mean, my goodness, again, it's LT. My number 4. Let's see, where do I've got here? My number 4. Okay, Kyle, I'm going to take you back to WrestleMania 23. There was a match called Battle of the Billionaires. And it was between Vincent McMahon. It wasn't actually, they didn't fight, but it was essentially McMahon v. Trump, who went on to become, obviously, president of the United States. So anytime you got the president of the United States in the ring, I mean, my goodness, you got to have that in your top 5. I've already talked about my number 3 being DDP and Karl Malone versus Hogan and Rodman. Number 2 is Mike Tyson with DX, Shawn Michaels, and Steve Austin. But my number 1, Kyle, I don't know that we've ever seen, other than one time in the history, that a celebrity has actually won the title. And I'm going to take you back to old school WCW days where David Arquette became the World Championship Wrestling heavyweight champion of the world. That's got to be number 1.
No, that was
he won
awful.
he won the belt.
Look, we're killing the business at this point. We're killing the business.
Well, of course they are.
Okay, as long as we're on the same page.
Absolutely. All right. A couple other things before we get to a break, and then we're going to come back and get into our fan stuff. So, Kyle, I saw this earlier in the week, and I wanted to get your take on this. So, it is being reported, and I think I saw this on it was either Newsweek or the New York Times, or it was a credible news outlet saying that by 2027, there will be a hotel in space.
Mm-hmm.
So 7 years from now, 6 years from now, a hotel in space. My question to you, Kyle, if from a financial standpoint, if that was not an issue, if you had the capacity financially to be able to do this, would you board a space shuttle of some sort, fly into outer space, and stay a duration at the space hotel?
You daggum right, I would.
No chance.
Well, okay. Can I talk about our conversation pre-show?
Yeah, please do.
So me and you were actually having this conversation pre-show about just flights because I won't be on the show next week. Like the 2 out of 3 weeks, I'm not showing up. Sorry, guys. But I won't be on the show next week.
We're cutting your pay in half.
That's fine. Half a zero is still 0.
Right.
But we're flying out. Jack's got more appointments, and I've talked about that in the previous episode. Go back and listen. Where you can find us on YouTube and anywhere you download podcasts. So please do so. Give us a 5-star rating.
Nice.
That's what I do. But no, we talked about it, and you can't stand being on a plane. Like a 2-hour flight, you can make it through. But I've flown to Australia. I've flown to Scotland, and those longer flights you couldn't handle. So I get why you wouldn't.
Well, and it's not really about the flight for me, because I mean the flight, you got to think that's actually the distance you're covering is pretty substantial, but that's probably going to be a fairly quick flight. The issue is you were in space.
Exactly.
And
like Star Wars.
Well, like Star Wars, except for there is no force and there's no robots running around doing everything for you. You were in space, and if something goes wrong,
in space, we can have robots running around.
If something goes wrong, and there's a long way for you. There's a lot of things that need to happen for you to be able to make it back safely.
Same idea. If you're in a hotel and you're on floor 42, right? You go and you stay in one of them high-rise hotels in New York City, Chicago, wherever it is you're doing it, right? And there's a fire on, say, floor 12. you're screwed anyways. It doesn't matter
Hey.
if you're in space or not.
But you're in on the earth, and there are
And?
firemen that can come and put that fire out.
Hey,
if you're
if
in
it's my
space,
time to go, it's
you're
my time to
screwed.
go, man. Like
It's not happening. There is no way on God's green earth that I'm leaving God's green earth to go stay in the space hotel. But good for you, Kyle. Please take pictures, send them back. Maybe if the internet's good enough up there, we can do a show and you can be the first dad in space
that's what we'll do.
and put it on. All right, last thing before we go to a break. So this is something that just kind of really bothers me. I'm not gonna lie. You know, we talked about having Jonathan Boren and Ryan Watson on last week. Their shows, The Coach's Corner. We talked about being a coach. You've been a coach. I've been a coach. I've been there. I've done it. I know. I've seen. I've been around enough coaches. I know the drill. But something that really kind of bothers me is you see the comments by Jim Boeheim this past week. And the guy asks a question. Boeheim gets after him, basically calls him out for being short and tells him that he doesn't know what he's talking about. You've got Coach K earlier. A guy asked him about winning a game or losing a game or what they were going to do from there on out. And he goes after him and asks him what his major is and all this stuff. And you think about coaches, specifically, I'm thinking college coaches, a incorrect call, a player that maybe does something that they don't appreciate, and they can act like a jerk for not keeping this kid friendly. They can make a complete idiot out of themselves by yelling and berating someone. But if a player were to do any of those things, severely punished, suspended, maybe even kicked off a team, why do coaches get this leash where they can be jerks, and where if they were in any other profession and they acted like that, they would be absolutely ridiculed by society and basically written off? And, so why do coaches get this leash to act like jerks?
So I think there's a few things. We've kind of expected coaches to be jerks based on stories we've heard from people who, they talk about, oh, my coach did this and blah, blah, blah. We expect it because look at the way they're portrayed in literature and film. They're all like, it's always, he said something mean. It's always a he, right? He said something mean or whatever. And so we kind of expect it, but notice the names you threw out: Jim Boeheim and Coach K. When you start thinking about football, the first names that come to mind are Bill Belichick, Nick Saban, heck, Urban Meyer. What do they all have in common?
Well, that's fine that they win. I mean,
they're highly successful.
And I get that, but why does that give them the
what are they paid to do, Mike? Are they paid to be nice guys, or are they paid to
no,
win?
But I'm just saying, if they were in any other profession, nobody would put up with the way that those people are talking to other people. So why are they given the excuse that they can do that?
Because they're paid to what? You know who couldn't get away with that? Who absolutely couldn't get away with that? Jackie Sherrill when he was at Mississippi State.
Okay, but let me tell you this. So if let's just say a run of the mill high school football coach in Tennessee, because that's something that's at least applicable to you, they are successful or not, but and they get out and make some sort of comment towards a reporter, you think they're going to get reprimanded for that?
Oh, absolutely. I've seen it happen.
No, they
may not lose their job, but I've seen it happen.
I think that there's just this precedent set, and I just don't get it. Like how do we just say, well, that's Coach K or Coach Boeheim or whoever. Well, they're successful, but it doesn't matter that they treated that kid like a complete jerk or they treated that individual like why? I just don't get how that's acceptable. And it should
or not. If they're winning, they're bringing too much money into the school to get rid of them. So they may even get talked to. Like, you don't know what happens behind closed doors. That AD may come in and be like, look, you can't do this in a press conference. Don't do it again, but make sure you keep winning.
Right. Don't do it again, but we're not going to do anything about it. It's just something that I continually think about is like, man, if that person was an insurance salesman instead of a basketball coach, they would be.
An insurance salesman doesn't have press people asking questions all the time either.
Hey, they might. You never know, man. It's
a tax. You know better than that.
Hey, you just never know, man. Hey, the insurance salesmen can be celebrities too, Kyle.
Get to the break. I'm ready to get to the fans.
Just look at the girl from progressive. She's a celebrity. All right, before we get to the fan, before we go to a break, I mentioned Selection Sundays next week. We will have a bracket challenge, part of Dad's Watching Sports. I know Off the Ball Network's doing one as well, but we're going to have a Dad's Watching Sports bracket challenge. It will be a free entry, but we'll give out some more information about that next week. So make sure you stay tuned. So, all right, Kyle, we're going to go to a break. When we come back, we're going to get into some of the fan talk that I know everybody is eagerly awaiting. So we will be right back on Dad's Watching Sports. Y'all stick with us. Big news in the Dad's Watching Sports podcasting world. You've heard us mention it on the show already. We are now part of the Off the Ball Podcast Network. We're super excited to be joining the team of great shows, hopefully adding a little dad flavor to the mix. You can check out Off the Ball Podcast and Off the Ball Network on all your social media sites. Just search Off the Ball Network. And while you're there, give them a like and a follow. You won't regret it. Welcome back to Dad's Watching Sports. Michael Draper and Kyle Castles. You just heard about Off the Ball Network, and you're going to hear from some of the hosts of shows on Off the Ball Network here in just a few minutes as we get into our kind of our special part of this episode that we're focusing on the fan. And we'll get into that in a second. But Kyle, before we do, it is your favorite time of the show.
I'm a fan of this.
It is time for Monkey Knife Fight. Kyle, you know it's a daily fantasy sports gaming website for the casual sports fan. You don't even have to pay that much attention. It's for you. It's simple. It's fun. It's easy to play. Users determine which superstars competing in the day's professional sporting events will record more or less than the contest line provided. MKF's daily fantasy prop games, Kyle, are similar to salary cap-based DFS games, but no math. There's no algorithms. There's no lineups. And most importantly, Kyle, no sharks, no baby sharks, no grandma sharks, no daddy sharks, no sharks. There are several contests to choose from, none of which require hours of research, so you don't have to get your PhD to be on Monkey Knife Fight. And you can start with a simple 2 for 2 or go for the highest payouts 100 times and higher by selecting an 8 for 8 more or less contest. You can get started right this second, Kyle, with 100% instant match bonus up to $50 with the promo code Off the Ball. Monkey Knife Fight.
Hey, I'm a fan. I am a fan.
I know you are. And speaking of being a fan, so let me set this up. So, a couple of months ago when we've kind of teased this in some other episodes, just kind of thinking about, what is something we could do differently on this podcast? And really the thought of, how do people become fans, or what is it that's so special about people becoming fans of those teams, and how do they do that? And what are the stories that are involved with that? How do they pass that down through their family? Is it a huge deal, or did they buck the trend of their family and go cheer for the rival? And all that's just very interesting to me. And so we've got a collection of individuals that we interviewed offline, some that we hosted on this show. So we got Cole Kublik. He was a part of the show 2 weeks ago. We asked him about his fanhood and his fan story. You'll hear from him. We had Ryan Watson and Jonathan Bourne last week. Asked them about it. We'll hear from them. Then we've got a couple of the Off the Ball Network guys as well that will be chiming in here. And so we've got a couple of videos. We did this kind of pre-recorded where we sat down with everybody and just asked them, say, like, the first topic is like, how did you become, what team are you a fan of, and how did you become a fan? So before we get into that, Kyle, I know you're Mississippi State, your Cubs, your Saints. Those are kind of your main three with the Preds. If you had to pick kind of one of those that's just really, when somebody says, who are you a fan of? And this is the one team that always comes out. What team is that? And I know you've told me this story, I'm sure, before, but how did that really kind of come to be?
I don't know. I feel like I've told you how I became a fan of all of them. I mean, Preds are simple. I moved to Nashville. I started going to Preds games, whatever. What I'll do is I'll go with the Mississippi State one. I think that's going to be maybe the most interesting one. I started going to Mississippi State football games when I was 2 years old. And the story that I'm told, and I don't remember this, but the story that I'm told is that even at 2 years old, I was impressing people sitting around us because I was telling everybody what was happening on the field.
Of course you were.
Because basically I played college football. Therefore what, Mike?
You know everything about football.
There it
So
is.
of course, 2-year-old Kyle's like, "Oh, look at that guard pulling there. He really pancake blocked really well there."
No. I don't think that's. But I was at least saying like I formation. I knew who had the ball, that kind of stuff. People were impressed.
I formation. That's nice.
Yeah. So anyway, look, that's all we did. Mississippi State back then was I formation. Ice counter power. Couldn't have said that. But I mean, started going to ball games when I was 2. I didn't stop. Like we were pretty much at every home football game until I hit high school.
Mm-hmm.
So I was in Starkville a lot growing up. Fell in love with Starkville. Fell in love with Mississippi State. Fell in love with with the sport of football. I remember storming the field in 98 or 99 when Scott Westerfield kicked the game winner against Arkansas to put State in the SEC title game.
Yeah.
I remember storming the field that year. Then I was young. I was 12, 11, so somewhere in there, 97, 98. It was a big deal for me. So that's how I became a fan of Mississippi State athletics in general.
There you go. Well, I'm very similar. I grew up obviously in Mississippi. You and I grew up together, but my dad is from Kentucky, and we were never really given a choice on what team we could be a fan of. It was all about the Big Blue, and it was, I think, something really interesting for me was growing up in a different part of the country than my team, and so. Like, you knew me. So growing up, you in Mississippi, in Tupelo, Mississippi, where you're about equally distanced from Starkville to Oxford in the middle, you have a choice of Mississippi State and Ole Miss. And I was neither. And I was Kentucky. And so I had a lot of kids, especially growing up, people were like, how could you be a Kentucky fan? Why are you a Kentucky fan? They stink. They're stupid. Why aren't you State or Ole Miss? And I was like, well, this is my team. And we didn't go to a whole lot of games, at least home Kentucky games growing up, but we went to basically every time they came to Ole Miss or Mississippi State, we went to the game. So I remember going to Vaught Hemingway and seeing Kentucky play Ole Miss in football, a lot of basketball games at the Tad Pad and the Hump. And honestly, specifically, unfortunately at Ole Miss, Kentucky lost a lot of those games. So there was a lot of times we'd go to Ole Miss and watch Kentucky play, and I would leave not a very happy camper. But it's just kind of one of those things, it gets passed down from your parents, and it's something that you have pride in. And I think I even enjoyed and relished the fact that I didn't go for the hometown team. I was kind of bucking the system a little bit, and really kind of actually enjoyed that part of being a Kentucky fan and saying, no, I don't have to go for State or Ole Miss. Now, ultimately I chose one of the two, and I went to Mississippi State for college. So
the correct one.
There was no way I was going to Oxford. So, but I think that's just part of being a fan is you have an influence and it's passed down to you in some form or fashion. And then you just kind of rally behind that, and group up with others. So I'm going to play a video. I'll be honest with you, this is about 8 minutes long for those of you listening, but it's really cool. We've got a lot of different people that have been on the show, and then part of Off the Ball Network. They're going to talk about their teams and how they became a fan. So here is clip 1 of how you became a fan, featuring all the friends of Dad's Watching Sports.
I didn't really have a college football team growing up.
So I'm a Washington football team fan.
I'm gonna go with my Ohio State Buckeyes.
I am from Alabama, so I grew up around a lot of Alabama fans. My brother in the same family somehow became an Auburn fan.
Teams I'm fans of. I'm Atlanta. Well, I got the gear on today. I'm an Atlanta Falcons fan, Atlanta Hawks fan, and a New York Mets fan.
By the time I realized how much I love college football, I knew all about South Carolina and Clemson, and Refrigerator Perry and Steve Tannehill and all those guys, and Columbia and Clemson and Williams-Brice, and I knew all that, but.
And this is actually technically my second stint as a fan of the team. My father was a fan of the team and is a fan of the team. So I was born into it. My very first jersey, I was about 5, was
All right, we're having some technical difficulties. I'm going to try this again and figure out, because this is good stuff. So I wanted to make sure we're playing this. I'm going to try to roll this again.
I didn't really have a college football team growing up.
So I'm a Washington football team fan.
I'm gonna go with my Ohio State Buckeyes.
I am from Alabama, so I grew up around a lot of Alabama fans. My brother in the same family somehow became an Auburn fan.
teams I'm fans of. I'm Atlanta. Well, I got the gear on today. I'm an Atlanta Falcons fan, Atlanta Hawks fan, and a New York Mets fan.
By the time I realized how much I love college football, I knew all about South Carolina and Clemson and, Refrigerator Perry and Steve Tannehill and all those guys, and Columbia and Clemson and Williams-Brice. And I knew all that, but
And this is actually technically my second stint as a fan of the team. My father was a fan of the team and is a fan of the team. So I was born into it. My very first jersey, I was about 5, was Heath Schuler.
In the college ranks, I'm an Ohio State fan.
All right, Kyle. So we're continually having some technical difficulties. So I'm gonna put this on hold for a few minutes, and we'll kind of move on. And I'm gonna try to come back and play that one video. That one's the longest one, and that's the one that I was afraid that we were gonna have some technical issues with. But so we'll move on and go to the next video, and then we'll kind of come back and see if we can get that one rolling later on the show. So another thing that we talked about with everybody that were guests, and for those of you that are watching the live stream, I apologize about the video feed and the technical difficulties. We will have the full thing on our podcast. And so this may just be like hey, if you want the full details, go check out the podcast, because unfortunately sometimes technology just lets you down. But we will have the full thing on our podcast, so you can go and hear all the great comments from all the guys on that. But Kyle,
and guys, real quick. It worked pre-show. It's not like we didn't test this one. I know we don't put a lot of prep in, but this one we prepped. And so.
I know, and it was working perfectly fine. And for some reason now it is choosing not to. But so let's move to the next thing. And the next thing that we talked about with everybody was, we in a lot of these situations, people talked about, and you and I even talked about this, that this was like a fanhood was something that we inherited. It was something that was passed down to us. And now this show is Dads Watching Sports. Now as dads, we have that opportunity to pass that down to our kids. And we've talked about that kind of at length. So I'm not going to you and I don't have to talk about that again, but we've talked about that at length kind of on the show about how exciting that is and how fun that is to be able to do that. But we're going to pray and hope that this video works, and we'll see if we can get some answers from everybody else about doing that. Let's check it out.
I've been trying. So my son right now, he just turned 6. So he's in that weird, he likes his Ninja Turtles, his Transformers, Spider-Man, but typically sometimes he'll want to do what I'm doing. So if he knows that I'm watching football, he'll come downstairs. Hey, can I watch football with you? And obviously the answer is always going to be yes. He is a jerk though. He does like to root for whatever team the Washington is playing, just to be funny. And it's a little thing that me and him have going on, but definitely he definitely starting to learn that in this house we are Washington fans, and that is the team that we root for.
The thing is, I haven't really pushed it. They know I'm a Dodgers fan. They've seen me go to a lot of games. They've seen me launch Simply a Fan. I would say in 2016 is really when they started getting into it. So at that time, they would have been 4, 6, and 8. And I think what they'll remember about 2016, the Dodgers got beat, put out in the
All right. Well, this is just very unfortunate, and I guess we're just not meant to be able to do this. And those that participated in this, I apologize. Like, it was working perfectly fine, and when we decide to go live, it doesn't. And sometimes that's just what you get when things go live. So Kyle, a lot of what people were talking about was just how they tried not to really force it on their kids to be a fan of their certain teams. It just kind of has happened naturally. Do you kind of agree with that? Is that kind of the technique you've gone with? And while you're talking, I'm going to try to do some troubleshooting on the back end.
Yeah, that's definitely not the way I've gone. I have tried my best, and I've been successful in places and unsuccessful in places. Tried my best to get my boys to be Mississippi State fans with me. I don't think I'm going to win that one because we live in Tennessee. Grandparents that are, local are Tennessee fans. Mama's a Tennessee fan. And let's be really honest, if they go to Neyland and Starkville and start to compare, it's not going to compare. Starkville won't compare to Knoxville. So as much as I would like to say that I could win them over to Mississippi State, I don't think I can. Now, I did win Wrigley getting to the Cubs because I named him Wrigley. And so that helps a lot. But Jack is a Dodger fan, and even though we didn't actually tell him we were naming him after Jackie Robinson, he tells everybody he's named after Jackie Robinson at this point, so I don't think I'm going to win him over with baseball. As far as pro football goes, my wife doesn't care. So if my boys get into watching football with me, I think they'll be Saints fans just because that's what we'll watch. But no, I try to force my fanhood on my kids. I'm not ashamed to say that. It was forced on me. My parents were Mississippi State fans. They said we Mississippi State games. Now, they lived 45 minutes to an hour from Mississippi State. That was easy. I live about 5 hours from Mississippi State. So I can't take them to ball games down there in Starkville the way I want to. But, I did take Wrigley. Me and you went with our sons to the Mississippi State Louisville Music City Bowl 2 years ago now.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yep.
At least two, not this past bowl season, the bowl season before. So whenever that was. I'm trying. Somebody, I don't know who was talking, but somebody in the video talked about their kid being 6, and he's just now getting to the point where he'll at least ask what's going on.
And let me pause you there. I have found a different way to be able to share this, and so I'm going to pull it up right now, and we'll get that full. Hopefully, get that full story here. Let's see here. Wait just a second for me. Make sure I got this right. We're going to get this in.
That's what she said.
That is. All right.
I've been trying. So my son right now, he just turned 6. So he's in that weird, he likes his Ninja Turtles, his Transformers, Spider-Man, but typically sometimes he'll want to do what I'm doing. So if he knows that I'm watching football, he'll come downstairs. Hey, can I watch football with you? And obviously, the answer is always going to be yes. He is a jerk, though. He does like to root for whatever team the Washington is playing, just to be funny. And it's a little thing that me and him have going on. But definitely, he's definitely starting to learn that in this house, we are Washington fans, and that is the team that we root for.
The thing is, I haven't really pushed it. They know I'm a Dodgers fan. They've seen me go to a lot of games. They've seen me launch Simply a Fan. I would say in 2016 is really when they started getting into it. So at that time, they would have been 4, 6, and 8. And I think what they'll remember about 2016, the Dodgers got beat, put out in the LCS, but they remember how much I talked about how iconic it was for the Cubs to be in the World Series, and how we hung on to every pitch, every game for that Cubs-Indians World Series. And I think that'll be kind of their first memory that they'll take with them. And they enjoyed going to games with me. I had some father-son trips that I took. I actually had a daddy-daughter trip to Cincinnati that I took. Brooklyn's got this competition with Harrison where he's been to 5 ballparks. She's only been to 4.
Yes, my daughter, she's almost 3. So she doesn't fully understand, but I put her in the Buckeyes gear when she was first born. She had a onesie. She sat and watched the games with me, obviously not understanding what she was watching, but, I get her to say Buckeyes here and there, and then, I'm going to have a son here in a few months. I'm definitely going to pass the tradition on to him. So I will solely expect, I'll respect his opinion, because he'll be born in Texas. So if he grows up there and that's what he loves, one of those schools, cool. As long as it's not Michigan, I'm okay.
I mean, my kids know we're Auburn fans. My kids know that that my wife went to Auburn, that I went to Auburn, that a lot of our other, their aunts, uncles, cousins went to Auburn. So they know all about it. They watch Auburn more than they do any other team. My son, I don't know exactly how this happens, but if he sees anything with Alabama's logo, he references it as Yucky Alabama.
Nice.
We didn't even really try to make that happen, but it's just it kind of happened. So it's one of those things that it has gotten going to the point that it's probably not going to stop, and I'm sure as hell not going to try to stop it. So this is kind of, and he's done it in public a few times where it's been a little bit uncomfortable around like some diehard Alabama fans. I'm just kind of, hey, he's 3. What are you going to do?
So he definitely will throw out a tighten up. And if I drop an OH, he will hit me with an IO. I started to teach him, when he sees Michigan fans, to a very hard boo. But then I started to think that he got philosophical on it. This is maybe not a good decision being from Springfield, Tennessee, which has a GM plant from Detroit. So it's nothing but Michigan State and Michigan fans. So we'll just be randomly walking around the neighborhood and me booing my neighbors. And I'm not mad at him because they deserve it. But at the same time, it's going to be weird when we're walking the next day and we're the family that does that. But I'm just partial to winners, and that's unfortunate for them.
I downloaded the MLB app on their iPads, and she got so into it throughout the year. Mookie became a player. Justin Turner has been Harrison's favorite player. Kershaw's been Zach's favorite player. But it's something that just happened this year that I wasn't pushing. Kids, if you want to watch the game, great. They were actually watching the games without me, and they were inviting me to watch the games. And that was really neat. For Christmas, Brooklyn asked for, the only thing she wanted was a Mookie Betts jersey. And that was like, wow. And the boys got into card collecting this year, took them to the local card shop for the first time. And then when the playoffs got here, it was unbelievable in our house. I mean, every day throughout, and it was an intense playoff series, having that extra round. But they got to stay up late every night. They got to watch every ball game. Dad or Mom, we were not making him go to bed. It was just, I got some videos of when we won the pennant and then when we won the World Series of their reactions. And I will never forget their reactions when the Dodgers won those games. It was really neat.
I love people that say like their kids watch games with them, and I'm like, I need to be around your kids because mine get like maybe a series in, and it's on. They want to watch Coco Melon or Blippi, and it's like we're done with this. It's moving on to the next thing.
All right, Kyle. So pretty cool stuff there to hear from all the guys. And what I'm going to do is because we're still good on time, I'm going to pull up that other clip here in just a second. But just anything you wanted to add in from what you just saw, and before you while you unmute yourself in the process.
See, what I was saying was those are probably the best stories because everybody gets to kind of say good things about their kids and funny stories and Cole Kublik and Bourne both talked about their kids kind of saying things in public that I'm not real upset with them for it, but maybe not. But who cares? They're 3, 4, 5. Whatever. I'm not gonna get that mad about it. Those are always fun.
Yeah, without a doubt. It's really cool to kind of see that, and again to talk about that relationship that you have now with your kids and being able, whether they become diehard fans or not. I think like Cole was saying at the very end, okay, who's 4-year-olds actually going to sit here and watch a game? No, they're not. They don't really care that much, but eventually maybe they will. And so it's pretty cool. Okay, so we're going to go back. And again, if you're listening to the podcast, this will all be synced up and nice and neat, and you'll never know that any of this happened. But if you're checking this out via video, this is kind of what happens when you go live sometimes. We're going to go back and listen to the first clip that I tried to play earlier. So let's check that out here in just 1 second, and we will do that right about now.
So my favorite team's the Dodgers.
I didn't really have a college football team growing up.
So I'm a Washington football team fan.
I'm gonna go with my Ohio State Buckeyes.
I am from Alabama, so I grew up around a lot of Alabama fans. My brother in the same family somehow became an Auburn fan.
Teams I'm fans of. I'm Atlanta. Well, I got the gear on today. I'm an Atlanta Falcons fan, Atlanta Hawks fan, and a New York Mets fan.
By the time I realized how much I love college football, I knew all about South Carolina and Clemson, and Refrigerator Perry and Steve Tannehill and all those guys, and Columbia and Clemson and Williams-Brice. I mean, I knew all that, but
This is actually technically my second stint as a fan of the team. My father was a fan of the team and is a fan of the team. So I was born into it. My very first jersey, I was about 5, was Heath Schuler.
In the college ranks, I'm an Ohio State fan. Living in the South, that's been a very easy experience that has had no repercussions whatsoever.
Here recently, though, to be honest with you, I've had a lot of fatigue on National Championship Sumi, watching them a lot. But I've always been a big Alabama basketball.
I was born in Florida. My dad and his whole side of the family was born in Columbus. So I used to go out there every summer. They're huge Ohio State fans. I think when I really first fell in love, I was 6, maybe 7 years old. But they had Maurice Clarett at running back. And then, so we had the same name. I loved watching Ohio State, but that was around the time I started fully understanding what I was watching. And they had 2 running backs. They had Maurice Clarett and Maurice Hall. And it was like from then on out, he had like a Heisman campaign type of season. And it was like from then on, that's what really ultimately made me fall in love with Ohio State.
Yeah, I guess I uniquely became, fans of each different team by, little things. I guess that's how I like to describe it for myself. Like New York Mets, my dad lived and grew up in Queens, so he was a Mets guy. So that's the only New York team that I kind of stuck onto for some reason. I think I really like David Wright and Jose Reyes and Carlos Beltran and all those guys in that era. So that was the team I just stuck to. I just couldn't get on board with the Atlanta Braves for some reason. So
I think it was one of those, I started to get into football right around the time of the Miami Ohio State National Championship game, and which was arguably one of the greatest football games that has ever been played, with multiple overtimes the way it went. And so people ask me, like, I got into Ohio State, chose not to go there. I don't have personal ties to it too much, but I have always been attached to that team. And so it's just kind of grown from there. I think when you talk about, what creates a fan, yeah, I had that emotional moment with that team. And when I was at a point where I was building that fandom, and so that became Ohio State.
So I often get this question, but how are you a Dodgers fan? Like being in Middle Tennessee? Because if you think about the timeline of my childhood, it's when everybody in this area jumped on the bandwagon for the Braves. But so my favorite team is the Dodgers, and to get to how they became my favorite team and my Dodgers fandom today, I really have to go back to how did I become a fan, and that started in the 1986 World Series. And but the childhood memory of like my first baseball memory that I still recall right now is Game 6, and that's really what propelled me into baseball fandom when the ball rolled through Bill Buckner's legs. I can remember it as plain as day, and how my brother and I were so excited. We had just become baseball fans. We had chosen the Mets. I had picked Darryl Strawberry, the superstar right fielder, as my favorite player, because I had known about him for 4 days at that point. And I still remember that night when Mookie Wilson hit the ball, and dribbles up along first and goes through Buckner's legs, and we went nuts.
And then one game, it was Washington against 49ers, and I made a bet with my dad. It was a Monday night game. I made a bet with my dad. If Washington won, I'd be a Washington fan again. And Niners won, he'd have to be a Niner fan. Knowing my dad now, I know damn well he was not going to be a Niner fan had Washington lost that game. But I'm glad that Washington won that game, because sports has been something that me and my dad have that's one thing that we connect the most on.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty much a fan of the same teams my dad is, Ohio State. He's a huge Dallas Cowboys fan, and that's because from when he grew up, he remembered the times that him and his mom used to spend every Sunday watching the Cowboys, when they were really America's team. So, like, me and my dad are, like, one and the same. So it's just, like, growing up, he was my idol. I always wanted to be like him. So whatever team he rooted for, whatever team, we used to watch Ohio State games every Saturday. Like, I can't tell you, I don't think I missed an Ohio State game in years. Even being away from him, we still talk on the phone while watching the game. We'll call, hey, did you see that? We'll check in at halftime and kind of go over the game. So it's just been something like that's a deep connection me and my dad has always had is during college football on Saturdays, even with being away. Like, we'll talk on the phone and we'll watch Ohio State games practically together on the phone sometimes.
And I'm kind of weird too, because like I grew up a Kansas City Chiefs fan, because I followed Derek Thomas from Alabama to the Chiefs, and Joe Montana was my favorite NFL player, so he went to the Chiefs, was almost kind of perfect. And then I went to go play college football, and I kind of broke ties with everything, because I was only a fan of who teams I was involved with. I didn't know what was going on in the SEC. I did not know what was going on in the NFL. All that was just kind of a blank slate for me. And I moved here to Franklin in 2008, 2007. And I've been a Titans fan since then, because I was in the area. I just kind of picked back up with them. And I don't even, the Chiefs team wasn't the same one that I rooted for, 8 years prior. So like it was just kind of a big thing. So right now I'd probably say those two.
I went through phases as a teenager. I tell people I was a college football fan, and I wanted to play college football. I loved going to games in Knoxville. I loved going to games in Gainesville. I went to a recruiting trip at Tallahassee, and that trip, being in the game at Doak was unbelievable. There was a time that I was a big Miami fan. I grew up Catholic, so there was a part of me that thought I had to cheer for Notre Dame. So I like different teams at different times.
But of course, being here in Atlanta, the Michael Vick era, all the electricity and everything he brought to the city, I couldn't ignore that either. So, that I also became a fan of them. I also used to go to games with my friend Kevin Johnson, and we played at Central DeKalb together as well. It was like really good. Our moms were really close with like the equipment manager, one of the people out over the park. So he had season tickets, and sometimes he would take us to the game, and those would just be the greatest times, the funnest times he had.
So my first 5 years as a baseball fan, I was a Mets fan and a Darryl Strawberry fan. And then November of 1990, Darryl Strawberry becomes a free agent, and he leaves the Mets and goes to the Dodgers. He signs a huge 5-year, $25 million contract, which at the time was the largest contract in history. And he was going home to Los Angeles, where he grew up and went to high school. And I had a critical choice to make at that point. I was 13. Do I stick with my team, or do I follow my player? And I did what probably any good 13-year-old would do, and I followed my player.
So Kyle, again, some really great stuff there from everybody. I think what Mark said there at the very end about following his player, I think that is I could almost see myself doing that, especially right now. Thinking about like all the Kentucky players that go to the NBA, and I'm like, well, I mean, I'm a Grizzlies fan mainly because we live in Tennessee, but I would almost just follow my players as well. And Kyle, you're on mute again, so I don't know what you're trying to say.
I said you've been a Celtics fan a lot of your life.
I have, and I had
this Kentucky voice.
I had to pass up the Celtics, man, when they ended up getting rid of Ricky P back in the day, and just had to drop them. So, but yeah, really really cool stuff there from all the guys. And there's one other thing that I wanted to highlight in a video, and then we're going to go to break, and then we'll have our interview with Eric Simmons. But you heard Mark Gent there at the very end talking about Darryl Strawberry and how he was his biggest fan, and that's the reason he fell in love with baseball, and then that's the reason he became a Dodgers fan. And here he is, 30 years later, and he's still a diehard Dodgers fan because of that. He shared a story with me, and I think it really kind of epitomized everything that we were trying to do with this show, about being a fan and about having the connection and about being something that's passed down and having your family involved. And so I wanted to play this for everybody because this is a really, really cool story from Mark about something that happened between him and Darryl Strawberry. So y'all check this out.
This is the beginning of February 2017. And a couple of days before, I get a text that Darryl Strawberry is going to be in Nashville speaking in chapel at Brentwood Academy. And I was pretty excited. I mean, I'd met Strawberry as a kid, favorite player. Last time I met him as a kid was like 91 until 2016 when I met him at that 30 years Mets reunion. So there was a 25-year gap there. But those are just moments in passing. Well, he was coming to Brentwood Academy to speak in chapel, and I just sent word down to my mom and dad and brother who lived down an hour south. I just said, hey, y'all to come up and hear Darryl Strawberry in chapel. You won't believe how much he's turned his life around and how he is now a pastor and a speaker and an author, and he really proclaims the gospel, and he can really bring the word. And so they all came up to chapel, and Michael, we got there, and I didn't really know what to expect. Like, I wasn't looking for this to be an autograph meet and greet. But I mean, also, I know that the fifth graders in Brentwood Academy Chapel really have no clue who Darryl Strawberry is. You know, some of the young faculty have no clue who Darryl Strawberry is. So we got there in chapel. We got there early, and it was kind of all access to him. He was at mid-court of the gym, just hanging out, talking to a few people. And I never will forget, we said hello. I said hello, my brother did. We mentioned something about seeing him at the 86 Mets reunion. And then my mom and dad met him. Now, remember, my mom and dad haven't seen him now in over 25 years. And my mom goes up, my mom is probably 5'6". Darryl Strawberry is 6'6". And she goes up to him and she just said, I want you to know, with tears in her eyes, by the way, she goes, I just want you to know what you meant to my boys when they were a kid, that they looked up to you so much and you were always so incredibly nice to them. And as a mama, that just means a lot. She said, and I'm so proud of who you've become. And then Strawberry gets tears in his eyes. And there's just this there's just this moment where I'm sitting there looking at what's happening, like this cannot be scripted. You know, here is my mom telling Darryl Strawberry what he meant to us as a kid and how that really impacted her. And, you know, she's almost crying and he's almost crying. And of course, I'm almost a mess. And this is even before he spoke in chapel. So we had a great moment, got a family picture. He speaks in chapel, absolutely brings the house down.
What a cool story is that, Kyle. I mean, again, here's somebody who had his childhood hero, idol, sports idol, finally, you know, gets to meet him. His mom is there and goes up and says, hey, I just wanted to thank you for what an impact you had on my kids. And again, that's sports, and that is being a fan and having this thing that's bigger than yourself and your whole family can be involved in it. And I thought that was such a cool story.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's fantastic. But honestly, that's what sports can do, man. Sports can bring a family together. Sports can bring someone that's not even part of your family into your family. It's a really cool thing.
Absolutely. So really quickly before we go to break, and then we're going to play our interview, and we're going to be way over on our podcast this week, but that's just the way we're going to do it. Definitely want to give a shout out and thanks to everybody that participated in this. And for those of you that did, if you saw the live stream, I apologize for the technical difficulties. Hopefully we were able to represent everything that you wanted to say, but special thanks to Mark Gent of Simply a Fan, Cole Kublik of SEC Network and ESPN, Ryan Watson and Jonathan Boren of the Coach's Corner podcast and Broadway Sports, Mo Murphy of the Up in Flames podcast, which can be found on the Off the Ball podcast network, Rob Cruz of Football and Chill podcast, which can also be found on the Off the Ball podcast network, and Jelani Brown of What the Game Means to Me podcast, which obviously can also be found on the Off the Ball podcast network. Guys, thank you all so much for participating. It was really cool, Kyle, hearing all these stories and then putting that together. And hopefully, I know we had some issues, but hopefully over the podcast that'll really kind of come out. So, all right, we're going to go to a break. And when we come back, we've got, I sat down, as I mentioned earlier, with Eric Simmons. He wrote the book literally about sports fans. The book is called The Secret Lives of Sports Fans, The Science of Sports Obsession. So we'll be back with our interview with Eric right after this break. Coming up next week on episode 56 of Dads Watching Sports. It's Selection Sunday and the bracket is out. The dads will take a look at the field of 68 and make our predictions for the Final Four and the 2020-2021 national champion. And who knows, we might even have a few guest pickers or two along the way. That's next week on Dads Watching Sports Selection Sunday. And Hey, welcome back to Dad's Watching Sports again, Sunday, March the 7th. I'm Michael Draper, and we're continuing on with this awesome fan discussion. Special thanks to everybody that contributed to the videos that you just saw. We'll have that running on a loop on our website as well, so you can go and check that out. Some really cool stories, especially that last story from Mark about meeting his childhood hero, Daryl Strawberry, and his mom talking to him as well. I thought that was really cool. And we've got some really great additional stuff coming up here. And I'm going to bring on our next guest, and he is Eric Simmons. So Eric is the author of a really fascinating book. It's called The Secret Lives of Sports Fans, The Science of Sports Obsession. Eric, thank you so much, sir, for joining us on Dad's Watching Sports. How are things out in California?
Oh, it is a spectacular, beautiful day here in San Francisco, and thanks, Michael, for having me along.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, when I had this idea about the fan experience or being a fan, and I just kind of started doing a little bit of research on it, and I came across your book, and I thought, this would be so interesting to talk to you about kind of the science behind being a fan, and why do people go down this obsessive path of being diehard fans. And so I'm really excited to talk to you about that. But before we get into the book, this is a show about dads and about dad life, of which you are one. So tell us just a little about yourself, other than writing this book, and about your family as well.
Sure. Yeah, I'm a writer and an editor, mostly about science and nature. This book was a bit of a change for me, but have done also some sports stuff. I'm based out here in San Francisco, and my wife works in tech, and she and I are both, lifelong Californians. We've been in San Francisco for 15 years. We have two girls, a third grader and a kindergartner.
Oh yeah, oh absolutely. And so tell us a little bit about dad life. I mean, so my co-host Kyle Castles and I, he has a 6-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a 1-year-old, and then I have a 4 and a 2-year-old. So
you guys are busy.
Yeah, we're all kind of busy. But how's dad life, and what's maybe some of the best parts of your life being a dad?
Yeah, I mean, it's, this has been a weird year. I guess I should just preface everything with that.
Sure.
It's been a weird year to be a parent. And, I think we're getting to see a lot of each other. I feel like, there's some good stuff about that. Like, I see a lot of my kids. I see a lot of how they do at school and what they do at school. We hang out a lot in the afternoon. We go to the park. And, I think there's a lot just hanging out with them that I like. One of the nice things about being a dad, especially as they get older, you just sort of get this chance to see the world over again.
Sure.
To learn everything again. Changes your whole perspective on sort of time and distance. Parents of little kids, right? Like when you've got little babies, like everything that used to mean something about time and how big something is. The parks that were like too small to go to are suddenly massive, and like 15 minutes, which was used to be, like too quick to do anything, is all of a sudden like that's an eternity. There's just this weird change in your perspective. And I think the other thing, just the way we're connecting here is just, I think it's very hard to imagine what it's like to be a parent until you are one, and that sort of, the feeling and the particular way you love your kids, is true for every other parent, or the vast majority of parents running around the planet. And there's this connection you suddenly have with other people, this way to understand, this is the core part of my identity at this part, right? Like this is, I'm a parent first. And, there's this understanding that's true for most people who are parents. And so just that ability to say, hey, we're in this group now, and we sort of understand each other on some level. We understand what motivates each other. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is. It's funny because we, we're in that group as well. And now you see how your conversations when you're with other, friends or other couples, it immediately kind of gravitates. How are the kids doing in school? Or, what's going on with this? Or how are they sleeping at night? Or, before this, we were never asking those questions.
Yeah, it's not great for conversational diversity in terms of keeping up with, intellectual movements, but.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, let's get into, I've got one more question about kind of parenthood, if you will.
Sure.
What are some important lessons or things that you and your wife are passing down to your daughters?
Yeah, it's something I think about a lot. And I don't feel like I guess it's odd for a writer, but I don't feel like I'm an aphorism sort of person. But I try and work really hard at just sort of modeling stuff, for them, modeling the way I want them to be in the world. And, I guess every parent is sort of trying to model the values for their kids that they sort of feel like are missing a little bit in the world. So, I think a lot about empathy, curiosity, resilience, I think is really important for them. Just, sort of ability to bounce back, and kindness. And then also, I think just because I write a lot about science and nature, we spend a lot of time out in nature, walk around in the park, and, I really want them to be observant. And, I guess I don't tell them, you need to do this in life, but I do tell them the names of a lot of plants and animals and things. So that's probably a lot of natural history lessons that I'm sort of passing along to them.
Yeah, absolutely. So just kind of quickly, a little bit off scripts, what are some of y'all's favorite things to do outside? Because my family, we love to spend time outside as well. So what are some of the biggest things that Simmons family likes to do outside?
Yeah, I mean, we, probably a lot of the same stuff. We love going, just hiking, walking, biking. They're getting really into their bikes right now. And so we sort of go around and, we're lucky. We live right next to a big sort of park that's a mix of, sort of soccer fields and football fields and open space area. So we spend, the youngest daughter is getting into soccer. And so we spend some time at the soccer field, just running around kicking the soccer ball. And we spend some time, looking at birds and going through the community garden and, looking at bees and things on the, on the flowers. And there's some hawks that hang out in our park and we like to watch them, and they catch the gophers. That's pretty cool to watch. So we spend a lot of time just sort of out, I guess, what do you call it? Nature watching, looking at, going on hikes in along the bay shore here and out at the ocean and, just hanging out in the hills and looking at what's around us.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything to be able to get outside, get some energy out,
Yes.
and
Also that.
yeah, we are right in that. So you wrote this book about being a sports fan, or kind of the science behind it. So yourself, are you a sports fan? If so, what are some of your favorite teams that you follow?
Yeah, I mean, this actually leads into a bit of why I wrote the book. I am a sports fan, or I think I'm reevaluating quite a bit. Over the last. I mean, look, I'm reevaluating over the last 8 years since my first daughter was born. But I'm reevaluating a lot in the last year, let's say, as well. So
Sure.
I still follow sports pretty closely, and I think I was a pretty obsessive fan at one point, maybe less so now. But I grew up in the Bay Area. I grew up in the East Bay, so followed sort of the local teams, A's and Warriors. And then my dad is a graduate at UC Berkeley, so really grew up following a lot of the Cal sports teams, especially the football team and the basketball team, and just going with my dad. I mean, he was dragging me to football games, college football games, when I was 4 months old or something. So
Nice.
that's pretty deep in the family there. And then I think when you my dad is also a lifelong hockey player. He's still playing in the 70s.
That's
Grew
awesome.
up in upstate New York, really close to the game. And so he's been playing, since before I was born, every Monday night with the same group of guys. When they started out, they were sort of the best game in town. They're all in their mid-20s and fast, and now they're all in their 70s, and and their kids are playing with them. And we got, my nephews are out there a little bit. So it's actually pretty cool. We got 3 generations on the ice at one time, sort of thing. And so when the Sharks moved here, I was 11. So we became sort of Sharks fans as well. And then I guess just sort of thinking about the book, I mean, you write that down, and it's sort of an appalling list of teams to like. I mean, the A's have this record for like most consecutive losses with a chance to clinch a playoff series. They're up to like 16 in a row now. The Sharks are like, there's just a tragedy of a team, except that nobody even cares about them enough to make a deal of it. And the Cal football team is sort of perpetually okay without or tragically terrible. But they haven't been to the Rose Bowl, which is sort of what you want to get to as a a former Pac-10, now Pac-12, whatever they are. Haven't been there since the 50s. So,
Well,
so there's some issues.
Yeah, when maybe the most famous moment in your football team is when the band was on the field.
Exactly.
It makes it really hard. And
I was 2. I was 2 for that.
that was.
I was 2.
Oh, were you really? That's pretty cool. That's an amazing story and amazing play for sure. Okay, so tell us a little bit about the book and kind of what prompted you, other than being a sports fan of your teams, what prompted you to write this book?
Yeah, so I mean, this is a book about sports fans and sort of broadly why we act the way we do. And I mean, I think there's a lot of people who, particularly people who follow teams like the ones I just listed, who, have those moments. It comes a lot after you lose a really awful game, and you just, sitting around thinking, first of all, why do I do this? But then, more like, why does this affect me so much? Why does this do this to me? Because, at some level you can intellectualize this and say, this is not me. I don't know any of these guys. I might not like any of them if I did know them. They're not doing it for me. I'm not there. Most of the time I'm watching on TV from, a couple miles away to 1,000 miles away. So why does this do this to us? And so that's where the sort of book started out. And I thought I write about science. I'm used to talking to scientists. I'm sort of used to understanding, the different ways of sort of describing science. I'll just go ask some scientists why we do this, and they'll explain it to me, and I'll write a nice little magazine article, and I'll have an explanation. I won't have to worry about this anymore. And of course, it's complicated because being a sports fan is being a person, and people are complicated. And so it turned into a book. It's something I spent, I think in the end, probably 3 or 4 years researching, and oddly enough, sort of continued researching even after the book came out. But took sort of a book to go through all these different ways of being a person that we're expressing when we're sad and angry and happy and elated and all the other things that are happening to us.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that about the roller coaster of emotions. And it's almost like every time we hear that phrase, roller coaster of emotions, it's usually associated with sports fan. A team hits a shot late, and then they come down, and the other team hits a shot to win the game, and it's just high and low. And it's really interesting to see how that plays out so much for individuals when they're sports fans or when they're fanatic fans of a team.
Yeah. Specifically for me, I think the roller coaster is always crashing at the bottom. I don't know why that is, but yeah, I mean, there's a lot going on, right? There is, I think one of the really lovely and great things about writing about sports fans is that you do sort of see like all the different ways and all the different behaviors and all the different feelings of being a person. Like this is a very emotional thing. And so it's this great way to investigate, like, why do we feel happy? Why do we feel euphoric? What is the connection that we have with a stranger, on a physical level, on a mental level, that allows us to sort of feel things from watching them? Why do we feel angry? Why do we feel like, the other people are the enemy when we know that they're not? Where does all that stuff come from? And you see it, it's easy to look at in sports fans, but you see this in a lot of places. I mean, politics is the obvious one, but there's a lot of different other ones, where you just see all these behaviors that we see here in sort of more complicated ways. And so it also becomes this way to talk about, like, what is our culture? How does culture affect people? What is, sort of being here and being in this time due to the way you sort of see things and see the world and act on things? So it all becomes, these sort of really fascinating questions, again, about, being a sports fan sports fandom is this great little laboratory for studying human beings.
Yeah, it really is. And it's almost like we, in a sports fan setting, we almost excuse like behavioral types because like, okay, well, they're just really mad and they threw something against the wall, but the team got me. It's okay though. When in normal life, that behavior would be like, well, that's a little question.
Yeah, well, there's some permissiveness here where
Right.
There's an argument that some people will make that, sports is one of the areas where people, and I think particularly men in a lot of countries in the world and a lot of cultures in the world have sort of permission to feel emotions. That this is sort of a critique of a lot of other elements of our culture, but that there aren't a lot of outlets that you have. And, people have emotions, it's okay. But that sports is one of the ways you can sort of express them. And, I think that takes a lot of different roles. I mean, this is one of the places where, very, very traditionally, we bond with our families. This is a place where dads and kids bond. And that's not a criticism of it at all. I think that's, sort of, lovely about sports.
Absolutely.
It's just, there's a lot going on. And I think, again, I was thinking about, there was a psychologist I was talking to who would run these experiments, and he never really thought about sports fans before, but he would run experiments on euphoria. So he was always interested in like different ways you could induce euphoria. And he was talking about like, well, you never considered sports before, but this is a lot easier than like, giving everybody who comes into the lab $1 million.
Yeah, absolutely.
I like
That's
that.
that's an interesting take for sure. All right, so last thing I'll ask you before we let you go, and I definitely want you to be able to give a plug for where people can find your book. Any wild or funny either fan stories that you uncovered, or anything that you just were kind of taken aback when you did all your research?
Yeah, I mean, this is a great question. There's a lot of fun stories in the book, and I hung out a lot with Oakland Raiders fans, so that was certainly pretty interesting. And I went to some just god awful 4 a.m. televised soccer games with some expat Arsenal addicts. Actually, I was thinking about just you're in Nashville. I went to a Predators game in Nashville with the sports fan psychologist there, which was just terrible for me. But he enjoyed it. But I think for this, I was thinking a lot. I went to the opening day of baseball season in Cleveland, and this was actually, I wrote this book sort of sandwiched around having my first kid, and so.
Okay.
The first draft was due the day my daughter turned 3 months old. I don't recommend this for everyone.
I would say probably not.
They have that thing where you look back and it's like, how did I actually do that? I don't know. What did you write? I don't really know. I don't remember any of it. But so one of the last reporting trips I did, I went to the opening day of baseball season. I went to Cleveland because I was writing about sort of, they've got a sports fan thing going on there.
Yeah.
And met up with this guy, Todd Derry, who's just like a diehard Cleveland fan and loves the town and just sort of adopted me and took me to opening day, and we're sitting there and he's got kids. He already had kids at that time, and I was thinking a lot about it. My daughter's due soon, and so we're sitting there and it is just like a perfect day. It is blue sky and spring weather and everything baseball represents about the return of spring and the return of hope. It's all there, right? And we're sitting there. And we're talking about our families, and Todd is, he's loves this team because he's connected through his dad, and we're talking about being dads and talking about his family. It's just, it's like everything perfect about sports. And Cleveland takes the lead, early. It's a nice, relaxed atmosphere, good crowd, and then we get to the 9th inning, and they're leading by 3 going into the 9th inning, and there's this like just wave of like weird energy around the stadium, and Todd and his friends like lean over to me, and all of a sudden, like they're like, "Watch, we're gonna blow it now." It's like, what are you're kidding? I mean, this is like the perfect day. Like the sky is blue, the fans are happy. We've just been sitting here talking about our families, and and they're like, "No, watch," and you just feel the energy. Like suddenly, the wind is blowing off the lake, and you see this like cloud race over. And the closer is this all-star closer who like would leave in this flame of like insulting all the fans, like gives up back-to-back hits to start the 9th inning. And you just feel like everybody in the stadium, like freaking out all of a sudden. and sure enough, they give up 3 runs in the 9th, tie game. They go into extra innings, and everybody's just like suddenly on a dime, like from this is the very best it is to be a person to like, God, I hate everything. This is so miserable. Why do I do this to myself?
That's great.
And the game goes forever. It turns into the longest opening day game in baseball history. I left in the 14th inning because I was freezing. I remember looking at the marquee as I was walking through downtown on the way back, and the wind's blowing, and it's like 38 degrees.
Oh man!
And I get back to my hotel, and I'm warming up, and I watch, and finally in the 16th inning, they lose, give up a 3-run home run.
Oh.
They're losing 7-4. I wait for the final out, and I'm texting like 3 seconds after the final out. I just get this like cryptic text from Todd: "Welcome to Cleveland." And I'm like we're talking about the roller coaster of emotions there. I just feel like great guy, great city, and I'm glad that wasn't my family tradition.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely, and that's such a perfect story to kind of finish this up, because I mean that's the epitome of being a fan. It's the highest of highs, and it can end up being the lowest.
Pull the rug out from under you at any time.
Absolutely. Well, Eric, lastly, tell everybody where they can find the book, and man, again, thank you so much for coming on with us. Really.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. I mean, I think it's online, anywhere you get books online at this point. It's around and about, so I appreciate it if you check it out. But it's real fun to talk about it, and I enjoy talking about it, through the lens of being a dad, because that's pretty fun.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's The Secret Lives of Sports Fans, the Science of Sports Obsession. Eric Simmons. We had a guy on with us a couple of weeks ago, and he said, I think we'd asked a question about, like, do you take your kids to games? And he was like, anybody who says their 4-year-old sits through and watches the game is lying. Like, that does not happen.
We watch highlight packages a lot.
Exactly. Yeah. He's like, yeah, we watch maybe a series or two, and then it's on to Coco Melon or Blippi or something like that.
Yeah. That's the right way to do it. You got to train for later.
That's right. Absolutely. All right, Eric. Well, thanks again. We really appreciate it. Congratulations on the book and all the success. And we'll talk to you again soon.
Yeah. All right. You guys take care.
All right. Thank you. All right. Well, this has been Dad's Watching Sports. Thank you so much for checking us out. We will see you next week. It's Selection Sunday, March Madness style. We'll see you next week on Dad's Watching Sports.